Morning, everyone. Am I audible to all? You guys hear me all? Very good morning. Sheesh. Thanks, Sriram. Hi, Shilpi. Hi, Gopal. Krishnan. Okay. I believe more people are yet to join in. So let's give another couple of minutes who are yet to join. But otherwise, how do you think, guys, we are going on? I'm asking this question probably again, but it's my job to be really aware of what's going around. So are you guys now feeling a bit comfortable with this whole setup, comparing yourself with day one and today itself of the course? You find yourself comfortable now? I mean, not kind of expert for sure, but at least, yeah, things seem to be in control. You're able to understand, you are getting the essence of data science and SAS. Okay, thanks Ashish. Great, Gopal. So Sriram is much more comfortable ever since the first day. Shilpi also agrees to that fact. Okay, great. So guys, let's do this way. While the rest of the folks are joining in, let me first of all, yeah, Krishnan, that's for sure. Practice is Practice is actually something that even the most experienced programmers, I mean, they can't live without. So even they have to practice continuously. Otherwise, you lose the grip very quickly. So that's something pretty obvious. Doesn't matter if you're a novice or if you're an expert level guy. So that is something you always have to take care all throughout your programming life. Great guys. So let me just give another couple of minutes for rest of the people who are yet to join. And meanwhile, what we would do is I would like to actually talk about that problem statement, the two problem statements that I gave out. Most of you did answer actually very well, beyond my expectations, and thanks to all who tried attempting all of those questions, and I'm really happy to see the progress. But let's discuss, because I think some of you gave perfect answers while some of you were having kind of doubts in there. So let's discuss that. Maybe that is going to help us all in understanding and strengthening up a foundation part. So is my screen visible to all? Great. So I'm just looking at one of the answers that was being sent out to me. Okay. And I'm looking at question, I believe this is the second question in the series. And what the question was all about, that I have a couple of name of students and marks of the students, and we are supposed to find out who all got second highest marks, if I'm not wrong. That's what the question was. So if I'm looking at this particular solution, guys, so if I go with this proxy equal statement, first of all, tell me, do you think this would work or no? I would request everyone who have attempted this question or who haven't, irrespective of that. Now, since we are looking at it, do you think this statement or this proxy equal code is going to work or not? Shriram says this will not give us the desired output. Shilpi says it works. Okay. Can I have a response from everyone, please? Because I know most of the people at the moment in the forum, they have attempted this question. Somshekhar says it does work. Okay. Everyone, please. Ashish says it does work. Okay. Krishna says it works. Okay. I think amongst all, Sriram said that it won't work. Sriram, why? What's the rationale behind your view that this is not going to work? So Sriram says that this code will give only the first observation with the second highest marks. Okay, let me run this bit of code and then let's together see what's the output. So if you see here, much to our surprise, we can notice here that we get the marks of the second highest marks of the class and the name as well. First of all, please understand in this part, probably proc SQL is not that strict about the syntax check. Okay. So yeah, Shriram, I am in perfect agreement with you what you said just now, that Shriram says that if there were, let's say, four students who got the second highest marks, and if I were running this bit of code, and Shilpi, you are also right. So if we run this bit of code, since we have hard coded that the number of observation as an output would be only 2. So even though if there were 4 students who got the second highest marks, this is going to return only the first 2 guys. Do you agree with me or not? Everyone. Do you agree with my viewpoint? Okay, so we understand first flaw in this code. Okay. Now another thing, if you recall our discussion what we had last time, I told you guys very clearly that there are two ways to filter our data in SQL. One is using the where clause, another is using the having clause. The where clause is being used when you want to filter your data on the raw table. I mean, if I want to filter out something from this set of table itself, I would use where clause. But in case I am using the group by statement to aggregate my data and then I'm trying to filter the aggregated data, only then and then the having clause will come into play. Do you guys recall that part? I did tell you about it. There are two ways to filter your data, having and the where clause. Where clause works on the raw data, having works on the grouped or the aggregated data. The second problem in this code is that you can see this code makes use of having clause, whereas there is no group by statement in the whole query. Although proc SQL is not very strict about this syntax check, had it been any other proper database, okay, some database like Oracle or SQL Server or Microsoft SQL Server, this would have failed in the compilation phase itself. This would have not run altogether. So first of all, this having clause should not be over here. Another problem is, since we have hard coded, since manual inspection tells us that there would be only 2 students who have got the second highest marks, we are actually hard coding this whole process. So if there were 4 students, this code is not going to give us the desired result. Okay, I believe everybody understands this bit of nuances here. Can somebody, probably Krishnan or somebody else, can you please post your answer to this so that I can run this before you guys and we can together confirm, okay, what's the right answer? Can somebody quickly post the answer to those who I had asked to post on the WhatsApp group? Anybody of you? Ashish, Krishnan, Somshekhar, Sriram, anyone please? Any one of you? Okay, I've got a couple of answers. Let me just pick one of those. Give me a second. Okay, I'm picking up Sriram's answer over here. Guys, I'm going to overwrite this answer with what Sriram says. And now, let's run this. So, all we wanted here was who are the people who got the second highest mark. So, we get to know that there were two folks, Snehal and Manish. And now let's look at the code. How does this code work? So if you guys recall our last session's discussion, we had discussed a similar problem, and we were talking about the fact that if I have my data sorted, okay, and I'm trying to get the maximum marks after removing the topper from the list, I would actually end up getting the second highest marks. So the query that you see now being selected, so it says, first of all, let's find the highest from the overall table, and then again find the highest, but by excluding the topper over here. How do I exclude the topper here? By using the not in clause. So in a way, I end up getting the second highest marks. Once I know my second highest marks by using this bit of query, what we are doing is we are simply saying retrieve the name of all the people who got second highest marks. And the beauty of this code is that this does not presume that there would be only two toppers or there would be only three toppers or something like that. Do you guys agree with me on this? So Shriram and probably a few more guys, they got exactly the same answer. And this is actually the right way of approaching this problem, because this doesn't presume anything about the number of data points that you would get. One more approach was being shared, which again Krishnan has put up here. Krishnan actually, if I'm not wrong, solved it by using SQL and data step both. So I'm just taking Krishnan's answer as well. I'm removing this proc SQL bit, and let's see how does this answer looks like. So the first part over here is what Krishnan has done is he is sorting the whole data on descending order of marks. So let's sort it. Now, if you see, Krishnan here probably is assuming that there were only, right, Krishnan, only two people who got the second highest marks. And that's the reason you can again see from the sorted data, he's picking OB is equal to 2, and that too from the second row onwards. So in a way, this solution as well presumes that you know beforehand that who got the second highest marks, and this one picks up only the first entry out of it. But if you want, guys, we can still kind of improve this code, this data step part, and make it work and get only the all the list of the people who got the second highest. Would you be able to improve this part? Can you try this? So proc equal answer we all know. What I'm interested to know is that how can we tweak this code, the data step code, so that we end up getting all the people who got the second highest marks. Is my question clear? Can you think of any way? Yes, why not? But have you tried using largest over here? So Sriram is saying, can we use largest 2 comma of marks? But Sriram, if you remember, and if I'm not wrong, largest works on a single row. Here we are talking for the whole column, the second highest marks. Guys, am I clear with my question? I want you to modify this bit of code so that using data step alone, we are able to get all the people who got second highest marks. Proc equal answer we have seen. Christian says just remove first OBS equal to 2. Okay, I'll remove that. So Krishnan, we get Aman who got 98 and Snehal who got 97. Aman is the one who is having the highest, and Snehal is one of those who got the second highest. And that's not what we're looking for. Hard coding should not be there. That's right. So what do we do in that case? Simple question. What do we do in that case? how can we tweak this code that I end up getting only the second edge? I'm not going to answer it. I want everyone to tell me their approach. That's the reason we have been building our foundation so long for this very day. Want to try it, guys? Okay, I can give you another 2 minutes, and then let's see if anybody is able to come up with the answer or no. I want everyone to try it out, please. Anybody with the answer, guys? Any luck? Somshekhar, any luck at your end? No. So Gopal has an answer. Okay, what is that, Gopal? Gopal, you see the solution that you have put. Again, you're assuming that there are only two people who got the highest over there, which I don't want to kind of calculate beforehand. I want system to tell me that actually there were two people who got the highest. So I don't want an answer which tells me, okay, that I need to know beforehand that these were the people who got the highest. I want my code to tell me. No luck? Okay, then probably let me show you an approach over here. Is my screen back visible again? Okay, so maybe it might sound very straightforward, very simple approach, but you tell me if that's right or not. Guys, so we had this data set. What Krishnan gave us was that we can sort, and Gopal also shared a similar answer, that we can sort our answer on descending order of marks. Now tell me, if I run this bit of line 16, 17 and 18, is it correct or not? All I'm saying is once I've sorted my data set, I want everything from second row onwards. Again, this may not be a perfect solution. Probably you can think a little more, but just as a kind of a hint to everybody to think more over it. So if I say first OBS equal to 2, in that case, I'm trying to exclude the topper from this list. So I can run first OBS equal to 2. So all I have done is I have just created a smaller subset of the larger data, and I'm picking everyone from second highest guy onwards. Okay, I'm not assuming that there are two people who with the second highest marks. So first OBS equal to 2, what it would do is it will pick from the sorted data set person number 2 who has the second highest marks until the last observation. Now if I look at this bit, what I'm trying to do is I'm declaring a maximum marks variable. I'm saying let the initial value of this variable be 0. Then I'm reading from the data set that we just filtered out, wherein we read everything from second row onwards. And then what I'm doing is whenever I'm reading the first row, so first row would be what? This first row will actually have only the person who got the second highest marks. So I'm saying let his marks be declared as the maximum marks. And this will be executed only for the first row, because if you see this condition, it says if underscore n underscore equal to 1, that means only when the first row is being read I am initializing my maximum marks, and I'm saying that maximum marks should be the marks of the person who got the second highest. And thereafter, whenever I'm reading anybody's data, if the person got the same marks as the second highest guy, I'm saying let it go to the output data set, else delete that row. So if I just run this bit, you can see I automatically get the name and marks of the people who got the second highest. And I'm not assuming that two people actually got the second highest, because I have already set the condition whosoever gets the marks as this, output it to the final data set, else delete it. Tell me guys, does this whole approach make sense to you or no? We've discussed all of this. Yes, Ashish, you're right. First OB is equal to 2 in this case. So we need to modify this bit again so that we actually, so I can write again a little. I just wanted to give you a quick solution, but as you say, we can again write a logic similar to this, wherein I pick only the highest marks onwards. No, sorry, if I'm wherein I'm able to exclude the highest marks and then take rest of the bit. So I can again change this logic along the same lines over here. You get my point, and that is what I want you to do now. Once we are done with the session today, you can think over it how I can remove this first OBS equal to 2, that restriction from here. Is that okay? Do you guys get this approach? Okay, so I can still send out this small bit of code to everyone, and I would suggest once you are done with our session today, you have to look and modify this part for me, this one, and see how you can tweak it further. As Ashish says, if there are people who got highest marks, more than one person is there, in that case this approach may not work, will not work. So how do I tweak this? Okay, think over it. We can discuss this again. It's actually very interesting bit. Another question was that how do I know how many people got what grade? So I got actually most common answer was using proc frequency. Shilpi sent out and probably some more people sent out a simple answer using proc SQL. So using proc SQL, I'm able to count what grade we are looking at and what is the total count. So if I run this bit, pardon me, I have a bit of cold, so I'm sniffing repeatedly. So please don't mind that. So you can see here we are able to see the total grades and their respective counts over here. Very simple solution, but very neat kind of. And I can just give this code. Okay, so are we done with these questions? Are we all clear what was being asked? How to manipulate our code logic as per these, right? I hope everybody is okay with these. Wonderful. Okay, and last time we were talking about the macro processing part, and most of the things were being discussed. I wanted to showcase couple of more use cases using proc SQL and macros together. So for that I have got set of simple examples. Before moving on to it, anybody would have a question about macros that wasn't clear to them in the last discussion? You want to ask something again? Anything that you're not clear with? Does anybody have a question? No? Great. Somshekar has. Yeah, Somshekar, please proceed. So you were waiting for an invitation to ask the question. You could have straight away asked it. Narrate on %str. Okay, let me pick that example again. Just give me a moment because I'll have to check where did I keep that. Just a moment. Okay, I don't have that PDF with me. Just a moment, guys. I'm myself not able to access my own PDF. So I'll have to copy this onto our SAS screen. The same example. Give me a moment, Shomshekhar. Okay. I believe this is what we wanted to check. Okay, so what's the difference over here? BCT, what did I declare? So with ABC, it works absolutely fine. We were trying to convert this whole string and we were trying to print it. So you can see this prints the results as is, SND analytics. But if you see over here in the second one, we are trying to use an ampersand over here. Ampersand is actually, if you just see, when we are trying to say ampersand abc, it thinks, okay, this is a macro variable. So when we are saying bcd is equal to snd analytics, and we have created bcd, I made a mistake. So you can see it is giving a warning over here, BCD not resolved. Why is it giving a warning over here? Because we have, okay, okay, I had put a space here by mistake. Okay, that's what was missing. Yeah, so if you see here, Somshekhar, when I say S and D analytics, and I have created this string with str function, %str function, that ampersand D is actually getting resolved, and system is thinking that ampersand D is actually a macro variable because we have used an ampersand symbol before D. So you can see in the output it says S5 analytics. What might be a requirement sometimes that we do not want our system to interpret ampersand or some special characters as macro variables. We want ampersand D to be treated as ampersand D only. In that case, we have to wrap this string with nrstr function, and that is why you can see when we print BCD, it does not display the value of D. While in the previous case, it actually thought ampersand D is a macro variable. So it checked that system's table and it saw actually D is a variable with the value 5. And that is the reason you see S5 analytics as an output. While in the second case, the definition of ampersand D was retained as is. Is it clear now? Probably this is what you were getting confused with. Is it clear to all? Do you get the difference between str and nrstr part? Okay. So I think I can continue now. I would go back to the part that any more questions from anybody? Call function. You mean the calls input function, Sriram? The calls input. Okay, just hold on. I've got one more example to talk about it. Just hold on to your question. Okay, guys, before I forget, I wanted to discuss one more example with you wherein I was trying to make use of our proc SQL in a little better manner. What I am trying to do over here is, if you see, I've got a small data set over here which has got some SSN values. Don't think what SSN, don't worry too much about what SSN exactly is. Let's assume there is some variable called as SSN, and in this small data set there are 4 rows. So if I run this, you can see I end up getting 4 rows of SSN. Now what I want to do is, I want to somehow use proc SQL and transfer data using proc SQL from one proc to another data step. Like what I actually mean is, if you see the next example, what I'm trying to do is, I'm saying let us read SSN variable into. Now this into you might not have come across in our earlier discussions about SQL, into a macro variable. So remember, macro variable was a actually a shared memory kind of thing, wherein we were actually storing data into directly into system's memory. So whenever we stored something into a macro variable, that was getting stored into the system's memory, not in form of a data set, and we were able to pull the data from system's memory later on whenever we wanted. So here what we are doing is we are saying select SSN into, and there is a special demarcation you can see for a macro variable. It starts with the symbol colon and it says a macro variable by the name SSN. Okay, you can give any name that you feel like. I have chosen the name for my macro variable as SSN. Okay. So whatever will be the value of SSN being read, it will actually go into this particular macro variable, which is SSN. Okay. Apart from that, there is an additional argument separated by, and I have written single quotes with a space inside. So if I'm reading multiple values of SSN, they all will be stored into this macro variable and they all will be separated by a single space. And the data that we are reading it from our previously created dataset SSN list. So let me just run this. And as you all know that whenever we read any macro data or macro variable, we can print the data by using the %put command. So if I run this whole bit and if I go to the log window, you can see the output of put statement over here. And the output that we are seeing is actually very interesting. What is so big deal about this particular output? The big deal is that here in this example, we actually read something using proc SQL. Some data was being stored into a macro variable, and that macro variable we were using or we were again assessing outside proc SQL. I hope you guys are getting my point. This proc SQL finished over here. The moment proc SQL finished, there was no table or new dataset being created as an output. Rather, we had actually stored our output directly into system's memory using this macro variable SSN OK. And then we were able to, despite proc SQL having finished in the previous step, we were able to retrieve the data from that macro variable and we were able to print it. If we want to do any further processing on this macro variable, we can still continue doing that. But the beauty is that we were using something from proc SQL and did not create an output table or a data set, but rather stored everything into a macro variable which we were further able to process. I would request everyone to just read these couple of lines because this is something that we can use very often. We can transfer data between proc SQL and data steps whenever we want. Like the example, the second highest marks example that we were discussing. If you want, you can use proc SQL and store the marks of the person who's the topper in the class, and then you can again reuse the macro variable in your data step also. If you guys just recall, couple of minutes back we were discussing about that example, right? The marks of the person who got the second highest. So instead of sorting and doing obvious stuff, what you could have also done is you could have used proc SQL and stored the marks of the highest marks of the class into a macro variable, and that macro variable you could have used to filter your data later on. Are you getting my point, guys? What's the benefit of that code? Am I audible? Okay. Did you guys get this point of transferring data from a proc SQL into a macro variable? People are pretty silent. Mayur, were you able to understand this part? Krishnan got it. Shilpi, Gopal, Somshekhar. Come on, guys, be little active. You're so slow at responding back. Is this example clear? Can I proceed? Okay. Now, there was another question from Sriram. Okay, and he wanted to understand more about the calls input function. So for that, let me go back to that simple example. Okay. Which page number is macros? Can anybody quickly tell me? Which page number can I find the macro chapter? I need to talk about calls input function. Chapter 35. 25. Wonderful. So let me take up the example wherein we can talk about calls input. The same example, Sriram, what we discussed in the previous session also. I'm going to take the same. Let me first run this. Okay. So Sriram, please let's focus on this example. I believe this part should be very intuitive to everyone. That using proc means what we are doing is we are going to the blood data set. We have two variables over there, RBC and WBC. When we run only the proc means part, what it is doing is it is going to create a new data set by the name means, and that means data set will have only two values, average of RBC, average of WBC. So if we run only this much, okay, so we can see this has the average M underscore RBC value, this has M underscore WBC value. So once we run this proc means part, this actually results in form of a new data set name being blood, and it has got couple of values, but the output at the moment the output is in form of a data set. It has been written onto a file. It does not exist once the code has stopped running. It does not exist into system's memory anymore. Sriram, until this far are we good? Now in the next step what we are doing is, if you look only this much part, what we are doing is we are saying let's read the same data set. Which data set? The means data set that we created in the previous step into data underscore null data step. Once we read this means data set, what we are saying is whatever was the value of M underscore RBC, whatever was the value of M underscore WBC, for these two columns only, let us create two new macro variables. So what would happen is, let me explain this. We had created our means data set, and that was written in form of a file, okay, and it had two values. The moment we say calls input, what would happen is system's memory will go to this means data set and will read the value of M underscore RBC and create a new variable average RBC over there. Okay, this average RBC will be created into system's memory, and this average RBC will contain the M underscore RBC columns value. Remember, when you say calls input, a new macro variable was created or a new memory space was allocated to average RBC. This is not happening on the system's local file system or in form of a local data set. This is all happening into system's memory. Similarly, when you set simput, put the value of WBC average into a new macro variable average WBC, it creates another variable into system's memory and it reserves the space for that. So when this whole code execution is finished, output of this is no data set has been created. Only two new macro variables have been written into systems memory. Which two new variables? Average RBC, average WBC. Are we clear until this far, Sriram? What's the use of call? Yes, average RBC will be a constant value into systems memory. So whatever we had the value, so remember this was the value of m underscore RBC 5.48, whatever is the full value. So m underscore RBC, whatever is the value over here, same value will be copied to average RBC also. Same value. So simput has the syntax. Here is the name of the variable. Second part is the value of that variable. Again, name of the variable, value of the variable. Done until this far. Now what we are doing is we are again opening a new data step. We are saying let us start reading the data for the blood data set, and what we are saying is for this new data set we are defining a calculation that for every row, since every row has a RBC column, for every row divide the value of that RBC by what? By this macro variable. How do I know this is macro variable? I know because I can identify through this ampersand symbol that this is actually not an ordinary variable. This is a macro variable. So moment you say ampersand average RBC, it goes to the system's memory and sees, oh, I already have average RBC into the memory. So it simply picks the value from there and drops it. Again, on the next line, again, the same thing happens. It sees, okay, average WBC is there. It goes to the system's memory and picks the value of average WBC. So RBC is actually a normal SAS variable, but average RBC is a macro variable. This RBC is coming from your data set, the data set that we have opened, and average RBC, this value is coming from systems memory. Once the code execution is finished, once the output has been written in form of an output data set, whatever was stored into the system's memory is all being deleted and it all goes and just vanishes away. Nothing remains back. What remains back is only this output data set named new. Rest everything is cleaned up because it was into the system's memory. The moment the code execution finishes, everything is gone. Now average RBC also does not exist, average WBC also does not exist. Are we clear now? So Somshekhar says, is it that simput can be used through data step only? Yes, Somshekhar. So when we want to put or introduce a macro variable during our data step calculation, only then we make use of calls input, otherwise no. For prox equal, so I told you how. Here Sriram is asking, should we put a dot after the macro variable? Which line are you referring to? Line 48, this line. Sriram, are you asking here? Okay, no, here we do not need that dot symbol because that dot symbol earlier was being used when we were trying to dynamically access libraries. So that dot is not required. Are we all good, guys? Can I go on? I hope this example should be pretty clear to everyone now. Okay. Now I wanted to tell you some more about information about the macro variables and macro functions. For that sake, what I've done is I've created a small example for you. Okay, let me show that. So I've got a couple of dates over here, a small data set which I've got some dates over here. What I want to do is I want to actually write down a macro function. And remember guys, why did I talk about macro function? What was the utility of writing a macro function? The utility was that I should be able to write down my own custom logic, right? Something that is not there by default in SAS, I should be able to write down a custom logic of my own and implement it in form of a macro so that I can reuse it again and again. Same example that I gave last time also. when we have that sum function in Excel, it's actually at the back end running a kind of a VBA macro. So this whole functionality has been exposed to us in form of a simple function sum. So we all need to know is just say sum number comma 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and it does its task. Similarly, I wanted to demonstrate here that I want to create a macro to which if I feed any given date. So if you see, I have got couple of dates with me, like this date, this date, this date. Now what I want to do is I want to write down a date based macro that reads the date and returns the first day of that particular month. So for example, if I'm feeding, let's say 12th February 2005, it should return me the first date of that month, which would be in our case 1st February 2005. Sorry, it's MMDDYY. This is 2nd of December. So it should return me 1st of December. Similarly, if I am feeding the date as 30th of November 2005, it should return me the first date, which is 1st November 2005 as an output. And I want to write down a macro function for this. Is the objective clear? Is the objective clear to everyone what we're trying to do? Okay, now let's see how we can do all of this. Guys, please be very focused now, because this is a very simple example, but it again tells a lot about macro handling. So I'm going to make use of only that stuff what we discussed in the previous session. Okay, so what I've done is, if you see here guys, what I've done is I have created a macro function, and that macro function, the if you remember, how do I write a macro function? By starting with the symbol percentage macro. Then I'm saying the name of my macro function is format date. You can choose any name. And what you see in brackets is my input data. So this is telling what is it that the macro will read. So what is it that I'll give to my macro? I'll give it any date. So whatever you are going to give your macro to work upon will come in here as a input data. So input date is what? Input date is the data that the macro is going to work upon, and I'm going to give this date to the macro. So my input argument is input date. Thereafter what I'm doing is, let's understand this particular line very carefully. After I've defined my macro name, after I've told it what will be the input that it will get, percentage let, who remembers what does percentage let do? Percentage let, does it assign a macro, Sriram? It simply declares a macro variable. It says, okay, no Somshekar, macro we have already defined in the previous line, so macro has been defined now. Percentage let defines a macro variable. Yes, so it says I'm going to now create a new variable, a new macro variable. Here the name of the macro variable is day of date. And what will be the value of day of date? Now you can see there are a lot of things being written over here. So we know in our base SAS, when we were reading about date handling functions, there was a function by the name day. So if you give any particular date, any date, if you feed to day function, it returns you the day. Let's say today is 22nd of May. So if I give 22nd of May to the day function, it will return what? It will return 22. So this function is available in our base SAS. When you want to use any base SAS function inside a macro calculation, you need to wrap that function with, and we spoke about it in the last session also, we need to wrap it around with the function called as sysfunc. What does sysfunc do? It converts your base SAS function into equivalent macro function now. So by using sysfunc, what we did was we were able to convert our output of base SAS into a macro output, macro variable output. Are you guys getting me? There is no separate day function defined for macro variables, but we were trying to create a macro, hence we made use of base SAS function, and wrapped it around a sysfunc, which is a kind of a utility that converts your base SAS function output into a macro variable output. Am I clear this far? Did everybody understand the utility of sysfunc? Gopal, Gopal, are you there? No response. Mayur, okay, thanks. So we use dave function, which is the base SAS function. We were, thanks Gopal, so we were able to convert it into a macro output by using sysfunc. So sysfunc is not doing anything great. All it is doing is it is taking the output of dave function and converting it into a macro compatible output. Eval function, we learned about the eval function last time also. What does this do? Eval function, anybody remembers it? We learned about two versions of eval or evaluate function. What this is going to do is this is going to convert my output into a number, kind of a numeric output for my macro variable. So we have actually lined up three functions. Day function gets the day of the date. Sys function takes the output from day, converts it into a macro variable compatible output. Eval function takes that output and converts it into a proper number. Same thing I have done for another two macro variables, which is month of date, year of date. So all I am doing, guys, over here is I'm just taking that input date, whatever you are going to give, convert it into equivalent day, get the equivalent month, get the equivalent year out of it. Are these three lines clear to everyone? Are these three lines clear to everyone? Everyone, please guys, I'm telling you, not all of this has been written into a book or into a single blog. Whatever I have learned through, I'm sharing some real life practical applications of this stuff. This is what SAS programmers do inside any real time project. So please make best use of it. Make sure you understand it now, because you're not going to find most of this stuff written into a single book or a single place later on. Trust me on that. I have picked it all after a lot of practice. So I'm just giving you the summary, the precise crux of every learning of mine. So make best use of it. Remain focused. Have any question, feel free to jump in. Ask as many times as you want. No issues with that. But make sure you are attentive enough. Okay, so we gave a date to our macro function. We said, please calculate the day out of it. Please calculate the month out of it. Please calculate year out of it. Once we are done with that, since our date can have first day of the month, can have 10th day of the month, can have 15th day of the month, what was the objective? The objective was that the function should return the first day of the month. So what's the smart way? Smart way of the final output handling would be that I'm going to use the MDY function. Now I hope guys you are able to recall what does MDY function do. What does MDY function do? Anybody who remembers it? So MDY function is again a date handling function, and what it does is MDY. M stands for month, D stands for day, Y stands for year. So if you give three parts to MDY, you need to supply the month name, you need to supply the day name, you need to supply the year name. If you give you these three things to MDI function, it will actually return you a proper date. So what does a date comprises of? A date comprises of day, month and year. So what we are saying is I'm going to give you the month, I'm going to give you the day, and I'm going to give you the year. Combine all these three and get the equivalent date out of it. Remember, MDY was again a base SAS function. It does not exist separately for a macro variable. So what we did was we said MDY, and then we wrapped the output of MDY with sysfunc. Why? So that it gets a so the output of MDY gets converted to a macro variable compatible output. And finally, we have our date, first day of month available to us. Are we all clear with this macro function? How did I create this? Okay, now let's see a practical example of it. We can use that, but I think I was just trying to print it. Even if we use Krishnan percent eval, it will not make any difference over here, because I just wanted to finally print the date now. So you print the date in number format or character format, it doesn't matter. Okay, now let's see a practical utility of the small macro that we created. We created this macro. The name of the macro was format date. It took one input data, which was input date, and then once we have to close our macro definition, we ended by saying percentage m end and then the name of the macro. So we're done with the creation part of it. Wonderful. So far, I hope everybody was comfortable in understanding what the logic was. Now let's see how to use it. Now, if I show you this was the input data set that we are trying to work upon. Let me just run this bit so that this data set gets created. So we have 5 dates with us: 1st December, 1st December, 2nd December, 30th November, 1st January. Okay, so this data set gets created. Now from this data set we are going to read the dates one by one, and then we are going to run our macro function on top of it. So this part, I hope everybody understand what does this set function do. Set function will start reading the date data set that we have just now created. Format statement doesn't do anything special, it just prints the date in the human readable format. Now comes the most interesting part of our discussion. Calls input date wt underscore date. Now Sriram, you were just now asking about input function. I explained you. Can you tell me what is it that we're trying to do now on the line that you see selected, line number 103? What is it that we're trying? Mayur says, I saw date second in the output. Sorry, Mayur, I did not get you. Please, can you come again? What is it that you mean? I saw date second in the output. It's not the final output, Mayur. We were just giving this. That is the input data set that I was just now showing you. Now we are going to convert these dates. We haven't yet started. Okay, so Sriram says we are assigning a macro to wait date using calls input. So here on this line, we are saying we are reading from our date data set, and we are saying whatever date we read on any row, let us convert it into a equivalent macro variable. The name of a macro variable is going to be input date. So input date will contain what? All these dates one by one. These dates it will contain, calls input part, and it will create a macro variable by the name input date. I hope line 103 is okay with everyone. We haven't yet called our macro. We haven't. Okay. Now let's look at the most interesting part, which is not even given in the Ron Cody book also. Line number 104, what it is trying to do is, now here is the part when we are going to call our macro. How do I call a user defined macro? By saying call execute. This is something we haven't come across earlier. Call execute. Call what? Call this macro. Which macro? Format date that we created over here. Let us call this macro. What does this macro accept? This macro accepts any date argument. So we are, whatever date that we read so far, we are simply passing that date to this particular macro. After that, if you see here, the macro was assigning or putting the final output into this variable first day of month, which is actually a macro variable. This output we are reading by using another function called as simget. Simget means get the value of this particular macro variable and assign it to a variable named date value. So simget means Go and check if first day of month this particular macro variable is existing into system's memory or not. If it does, get its value and store it inside this particular variable date value. Date value we're simply reassigning to a new output variable called as dates, and if I run this bit, what happened? This was working absolutely fine. Just a moment. So you can see now everywhere the first day of the month has been returned to us. 1st December, 1st December, 1st November, 1st January. Can you see that, guys? Everywhere we are getting back the first day of the month, so irrespective whichever day you have given as an input. Are you getting the essence of it? So in real world also you would be required to create lot of such stuff wherein you have to put down your own custom functionality for something, and then you can reuse it as many times as you want. So let me just first give this bit of code to everyone, because this is something that is not there in the presentation as well. And if somebody can please okay, so I'll do that. I'll put this data set, this is small example, on the shared drive also, because this is actually having lot of stuff about macro handling as is not covered anywhere in the books also. Please run this at your end, look at every single line, and tell me if you're able to understand this whole bit or not. Please, my humble request. I'm stopping here for a couple of minutes. You can check, see, verify if you're able to understand each and every line or not. Sriram, please let me know if you now still not clear with the input function or not. Look at this example and then let me know. No need to hurry. There is no point of doing 2000 things without understanding them. Ashish, did you get the essence of this example? Okay, thanks. Shilpi, were you able to hear me out when I was explaining it? Did you get the objective? Okay, thanks for responding. Mayur, I saw you probably had a disconnect. You again came back. I have pasted this example. Please look at every single line and let me know if you're able to understand. Krishnan, but did you get the overall objective? What is it that we were trying to solve over here? Krishnan, my question to you. Okay, great. Sriram, haven't heard back from you. Okay, thanks, Krishnan. Krishnan says the date value is in numeric. Is it for calculation? So Krishnan, if you see on my screen, I'm also trying to print. So if I don't put this format statement, okay, if I don't put this format statement, okay, let me just comment it. You see, if I don't put that format statement, it just shows me the raw numbers. I believe everybody is referring to this line. So if I include the format statement back again, now I can get dates in readable format. You see, now the dates are in readable format. I can also probably try one thing. I can store all of this. So date value, dates is our final output. So you can see now every single output has been recorded into an output data set also. So it's not that only we can see on the console the log screen, we can also store everything in form of a final output data set. I had purposely put data underscore null, but if you want to store it, you can store it as well. Please take a good look at it. I'm stopping here for a minute. Let me know if everything is making sense to everyone or not. If you are able to understand macros this far, it's more than enough. I would still say emphasize more and more on the SQL handling part, because that is very important and that is something that you would need very often. How many of you have got Microsoft Access on your systems? You don't have it. Sriram has, Somshikhar also doesn't have, Krishnan has it. See, the reason was, guys, okay, one thing let me clarify here. Since we all are using the web version or probably the university edition also on our local system, in organizations, when you have to connect to a database, a proper database, and get the data from there, then you need to actually know something about ODBC setup. I can talk about ODBC setup in SAS also, but the problem is for ODBC setup, your SAS should be a local installation. But since we have the web version of it, I am not too sure how we can make use of ODBC, because we use ODBC with a local installation, not on the web version of it. So let me see, but even if I'm not able to get it, I can still talk about the concept per se, so that you are at least aware what does ODBC actually means. But the real application I could have only shared only if we had the local installation of SAS, not the web version. Okay, I believe everybody is looking at that example, trying to understand. Mayur, did you understand the example, this macro example that I just showed? Okay. If there is anything that is not clear to you, please let me know now. Oh, Ashish says we did a kind of hard coding. No, Ashish, we did not do a hard coding. If you see, it was very clearly said that macro returns the first day of month. That is what the macro was supposed to do. So where is the hard coding? First day of the month will always be the day one would be what? First of that month, right? Where is the hard coding in that case? Agree or disagree? Okay, so Mayur is asking what does sim get do? So Mayur, just remember for forever now, there are two simple versions. There's two simple instances. One is when you put something, and one is when you get something. So if you remember, simput was to put a new variable, a new macro variable into system's memory. Simput, put this variable, this value in form of a macro variable into system's memory. So put is to define a new macro variable or probably assign it a value. Get means retrieve the value. Get me the value of this particular variable. Sim get. So this particular variable first day of month was being defined in our macro. Now if you see in the last step of the macro, we had our final answer in form of macro variable first day of month. But this variable's value we wanted to pull in our data step. To pull the value, we used sim get. Get means get me the value of what? This macro variable. And once you get the value, assign it to this variable date value. Okay, wonderful. Guys, I believe now everybody is clear with this whole discussion about macros, and I believe you're a little more confident how to use it for your later objective or purpose or project. Can I proceed? Everybody is awake? Yeah, Sriram, please try it. And this actually needs. I actually learned all of this after kind of a lot of sustained efforts. So I believe same should be done at your end as well to get the real feel of this topic. Okay. Now there are two things, guys. What we can do is there are a couple of questions for macros in the Ron Cody book. We can try a couple of questions from there. Or I have one more topic that is left for programming, which is arrays. So I actually need to do both. Which one you want to go first for? You want to try a question for macros, or you want to try learning new stuff? What do you want? Question as a son. We'll try questions. Okay, let's try questions. That's the best thing. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So let's try some simple questions here. So Ashish, I know you will be very excited with all the answers for obvious reasons. You and me know what's the reason behind. But anyways, but for the benefit of everyone, I'll have to do this. Which question would you like to try? Shall we try question 4? Can everybody try question 4, which is on page 569? Guys, can you all open up the Ron Cordy book, page 569? There is question over there. Can you all read it? You all have this book with you or no? Anybody there who doesn't have the book? Sriram has it. Ashish has it. Only two people. Who doesn't have this book? Shilpi? Somshekhar? Okay, Somshekhar has it. Can you all please refer this page 569 and get started? Mayur does have it. Thanks. Who hasn't responded? Gopal probably has connection issues. Okay. Let's try question 4, guys, please. Thanks, Sriram, for giving the link. Anybody with the answer, please? Somshekhar, any luck? Trying, okay. Connectivity issue, okay. Mayur, okay, Mayur. Are you guys able to hear me over? Am I audible, guys? Okay, okay. I thought I just lost you guys. Shriram is trying. Okay, guys, can we be a little quick, a little faster, please? Okay, so Shilpi has the answer ready. Let me run your answer, Shilpi. Just a moment, please. I'll try running your code. Looks good. Let me run it. Perfect. This works absolutely fine. Thanks, Shilpi, for your answer. Guys, let's hurry a bit. Today I don't see Hema around. Okay, I realized it now. Come on, guys. It's too long a time for one question. Ashish, no response from you. Okay, you have it. Mm, I think there is a small issue with your answer, Ashish. There's a bit of issue. Let me just run it. I'll tell you what exactly the problem is. Sriram, how about you? I'll tell you, Ashish, there's a small hiccup in your solution. I'll tell you what exactly is wrong over there. Just hold on. Sriram, trying. Okay, another 2 minutes. Okay. So Sriram has actually given me a warning. Don't disturb me for another 2 minutes. Okay, Sriram, carry on. Mayur, I hope probably you're at least able to understand the concept. You're comfortable in understanding things. Okay, you don't have a system today. That's okay. Mayur, am I audible? Okay, you're understanding. Great. I think now let's look at the answer, guys. It has been a little long while, otherwise we'll not be able to finish. Okay, guys, so we have the answer over here, and pretty much the same thing was being shared by Shilpi as well. Let me just put up the answer across to everyone. So the question was pretty straightforward, that if I go back to the question, the problem statement again, it says we have a proc means to be converted in form of a macro, and what we want to do is that we want a dynamic setting that our macro should have this format, that tomorrow if I say learn dot cycles another data set, I should just pass the name of the data set. So first argument that the macro should have is the name of the data set. Then the grouping column, so we want to group it by country, our output. So once we want to group it by country, first change that we'll have to make, okay, the first change that we'll have to make is that wherever the data set name that we are feeding, this particular part, so if you see, this particular part is hard coded at the moment, but once we convert it into an equivalent macro, we want it to be dynamic. So how do we make it dynamic? By saying data equal to ampersand dsn, data set name. So what would happen is, whenever we'll call this macro, since we have made this to be a kind of a dynamic thing, whatever will be the value of dsn, so tomorrow if the value of learn.bicycles becomes learn.bicycle 1, it will automatically be replaced by dsn, and dsn will again be reflected over here. So automatically I have given a dynamic setting for my data set name. So the first change has been done by putting the dynamic variable name against the data set location. Second thing was that we need to pass the country variable dynamically. So the next change that needs to be done is at this place, because this is the place where we say class country. So country part should be made dynamic. So to make the country part dynamic, what we have done is we have created another variable called as class, and this class variable is being given as an input to my macro. So if you say country, class will automatically pick country, and when the main code execution would happen, this will again be reflected over here. And then the last part was, and this is actually very interesting thing here. If you see, for this data set we wanted to actually analyze two variables. Which ones? Units and total sales. So for these two variables, the place was this, where unit total sales. Now guys, be very careful while looking at the format of this var part. If you see, this var can have two variables, can have four variables, can have only one variable. So whether it is two, four, or one variable that is required, for all of that we need to actually give one single macro variable place, which is vars. So if you see, unit and total sales do not have a comma in between. I hope you can understand this, but it is very small subtle thing. But if you notice, units and total sales, they do not have a comma in between. Why? Because this is supposedly be going in form of one single list. Tomorrow if I want to analyze only units, I just need to delete this part. If I want to analyze unit and total sales, I just need to add this part. And let's say later on you need unit, total sales, and let's say hypothetically there is one column profit. I just need to add profit here to this list. So I'm not putting commas in between. Why? Because this whole thing, right from units till profit, this whole thing is one single variable for me. Why? Vars. This is going to actually collect all these three values together, and when the code execution will happen, vars will actually be replaced by unit, total sales, and profit, everything collectively. And that is the reason you don't see a comma between unit and total sales and profit. It has to go as one single big list together. I hope you are getting my point, guys. So if I want to analyze, let's say only unit and total sales, and if I run this bit of code, okay, if you see now, for France we can see units and total sales. Italy we can see units and total sales, and so on and so forth. Tomorrow if you want to make change to this list, while calling the macro you say only units. Now what you see is the whole analysis being done only on units. So I hope you got my point, why there is no comma between units and total sales. And that is what precisely, Ashish, when you sent me your solution, I was saying there is a small hiccup there because your code will not be able to handle this small functionality. Now, can everybody assure me if you got this or no, or you want to look at it? So Sriram is saying we are using vars while assigning macro in the beginning. Sriram, I didn't get your question, please. Vars is supposedly the part wherein I am going to feed units, total sales, profit, and everything together. So vars is one single list representation for units and total sales both. Is it clear to everyone? Ashish, did you get the difference between your code and this? Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. So I think there is still a bit of issues with this macro stuff. How about the next question as well? Question number 5, guys. Please, can I request everyone? Question number 5. This is going to take us some time. It's a little lengthier one. At least tell me if you're able, once read the question and tell me if you're able to understand the question or not. So I think the data set name fitness should be there. Yeah, Ashish, thanks for your answer. I was expecting this, but let others also finish it. I'll just run your code in meanwhile. Okay, where is learn.fitness? Okay, so this is the fitness data set. Could everybody read and understand the question? Guys, I'm repeating my question. Could everybody read and understand what is it that has been asked? Okay, thanks, Shilpi. Can I have a response from everyone? At least you could read the question, guys. Okay, thanks, Shriram. Gopal, did you read the question? Thanks, Krishnan. Thanks, Gopal. Now, please proceed to solve it. Meanwhile, I'll try running Ashish's code. So, is it what was being asked? We were asked AVG%, which should be time, mile, rest pulse, max pulse. Okay, good, Ashish. At least it looks good. Hope everybody's trying. Ashish, you are done, I know, apart from you. Anybody else? Shilpi, any luck with the answer, please? Today people are a bit slow. I don't know why. Okay, Shilpi has the answer. Wonderful. Let me check that. Shilpi, just a moment. So I'm picking up Shilpi's code, guys. Let's see. Quite a lengthy one. Oh, when Ashish gave his answer, it was only one row. Probably I didn't read the question properly in that case. What was the question? I think this is right. Ashish, you were getting only one row as an output, right? We wanted for every row the percentage of time mile, rest pulse, and max pulse. This looks to be correct. What did you miss? Let me check it again. So run the three separately. Okay, I'm running your code now. Oh, okay. I probably did not run the whole code. Yeah, it's working. It's working. Okay, guys. I think enough of time being spent on it. Let's. Or you want to still try? Shriram, where are you stuck? You sent it. When did you send it? Oh, sorry. I missed your answer. Sorry, sorry. Let me run Shriram's code as well. Just a moment. I'm copying it. Wonderful. Thanks, Shriram. Krishnan, where are you stuck? No response. Okay, no problem. But those who want to look at the answer, here it is. So, guys, question is pretty straightforward. We have these three variables here: time mile, rest pulse, and max pulse. So, what we wanted to do first was we want to calculate the average of all these three. So, if I run this bit, only the proc means part, we get an output data set which has the average time mile, average rest pulse, and average max pulse. We got all these three. Now in the next step, using calls input, what we are going to do is we are going to read this data set which has all the averages and create three new macro variables: grand time, grand rest, or grand max. So three variables we want to create the three macro variables that we want to create, and we want to store them as macro variables using calls input. So when we run only this much part, it actually creates all these three variables and assigns them the average values which we calculated in the means proc means step. Finally, what we are doing is, once we have all these three macro variables ready with us, we are simply for every row calculating time mile and dividing by the average which we created using proc means, rest pulse and dividing by the average. Only key thing here is that this grand rest, the macro variable that we are seeing, this was being calculated using calls input in the previous step over here. So if we run the whole set now, you can see that the initial three columns are the original data set, and then we have the remaining three, which is the original value divided by the average value computed in form of percentage. This is what we were supposed to, pretty much a continuation of all the input functionality that we saw in the last session also and today as well. I hope everybody is okay with this. So at least one piece of code I should send out to the group, so that those who are having kind of difficulty, they can refer it. So good attempt by Ashish, Shilpi and Sriram, all three of you. So with this, probably I would like to close down the macro discussion, guys. I think we have discussed enough examples around it. There shouldn't be any more confusions how to use macros now. Okay, so with this I would now go on to our next topic of discussion, which is arrays. Okay, let me go to arrays. Where is arrays chapter? Have you heard of arrays earlier? Anybody? Because this concept is there in many high level programming languages, SAS being one of them. And have you heard of arrays? Okay, Shilpi has worked on it in Java. So Shilpi, you have heard about it or used it as well? Great, she has used it. Anybody else in VBA? Those who are familiar with Excel, they might know about it. Anybody else? No? Okay, let's get started. What is arrays all about? Okay, thanks Shilpi. So guys, arrays is okay. I'll try to give you a simple explanation of arrays. So arrays is actually a grouping kind of stuff wherein we don't want to refer to each and every individual entity by its name. Rather, what we do is we try to group a set of related variables together and we name that group as array. Like a simple example, if you see here, we are seeing a very simple example on the screen. If you focus, let me zoom it. So in this example, what we are trying to do is we have a data set called as learn.spss. Okay, and what we are trying to do is for any given row, okay, please understand me very carefully. For any given row, if the value of height is 999, then probably it's like a junk data to us. So what we're doing is, if the height value is 999, we're saying rename the height value as a missing value. Similarly, if weight is 999, it's again probably a junk value, we're saying reassign it as a missing value. And if age is 999, we are assigning the missing value to age part also. So for this data set, we had three variables: height, weight, and age, and the logic for processing this data set had been given to us that this might probably contain some junk data as well. So if it has a junk data value, which is 999 in this case, reassign it a missing value. That's broadly the logic is. So this is our routine way of working with these kind of conditions, and this is what we have been doing so far. Now let's try to see what is the role of arrays, or how does arrays help in improvising this kind of logic. Okay, now if you see on the screen, we have a modified version of this code. What does this code tells us? This code says we wanted to work collectively on three data bits, three variables for us, which was height, weight, and age, and we wanted to rework the values in there. So what we did is, instead of handling height separately in one if condition, weight separately in one if condition, age separately if condition, we try to give these three variables a group. We say now all of you are going to be part of the same group, and that group we have given the name as my vars, my variables. And then in curly braces you see 3. Why 3? 3 signifying that we wanted to rework on three variables here. So whenever you want to create this kind of grouping in SAS, you have to declare it with the keyword array. So array is telling us that now I'm going to create a group. That group name is myvars, and then you have to tell how many members you have in that group. So we have 3 members in this group. Who are these 3 members? The 3 members are height, weight, and age. I believe this line in bold is clear to everyone now. Once we have created that group or defined that group name, we are now saying, let us start reading the values inside the group. So now what we can do is, we have written a generalized statement. We're saying, let us run a loop. I hope everybody remembers a do loop. So it's saying that loop will start from value 1 and will go up to value 3. The loop control is defined through variable I. When the value of I will be 1, when I'll be making the statement my vars I, and the loop has just started. So when the loop starts, it starts with the value of 1. So if the loop value will have if the loop will have the value of I as 1, at that point of time we will be referring automatically to the first member of our group, which is height. So what we are saying is, if my vars 1 means we're talking about height. If height is equal to 999, then my vars 1 is equal to missing value. When I will further move on to value 2, then this statement will be, if my vars 2 is equal to 999, then the new value of my vars 2 should be a missing value. And similarly, when the I value, the last value of I would be 3 in this loop, it will be like, if my vars 3 is equal to 999, mark that value as well as a missing value. So all we did was, we wanted to do a similar modification or the same modification on all these three variables: height, weight, age. All the three variables we wanted to perform same operation. So instead of handling them separately, what we did was, we assigned them a collective group by saying array statement. The name of our group or the name of our array is myvars, and this 3 is signifying how many members we have. We have 3 members, being height, weight, and age. Then using a do loop, we are able to iterate. We use this term iterate. We are able to move across this array. So when the value of I switches from 1, goes to 2, and then goes to 3, we are also jumping from my vars 1 referring to height, my vars 2 referring to weight, my vars 3 referring to age. So we are able to handle all the three variables in one single loop. Am I making sense to everyone? Can I have a response from everyone, please? Yes, it will pick the variables in order, Shriram. So when the value of I will be 1, it will be talking about the same order as you have defined. Imagine this scenario of fixing the missing values, or fixing these junk values of 999, was to be done on a data set which had around 30 variables: height 1, weight, average age, salary, something of that sort. Let's say there were some 30 such variables. And if arrays concept was not being present, then if we only knew about the previous logic of ours, which was this, how many if statements we would be required to write? 30 individual if statements, right? That's right, Ashish. So if the concept of this grouping of variables was not allowed, then in that case we would have been writing 30 different if statements to process them. But since we know about arrays now, we were able to assign all three, or if say this was having a set of 30 variables, we can say array myvars 30, and then we put the list of our variables. Only change we'll have to make is we'll have to say do I is equal to 1 to 30, and rest everything remains same, and my loop will be able to talk about 30 variables in one single if statement. Do I make sense to all? Okay. At the end of processing this logic, probably uh, we do not need to uh, refer to this value of I again. So we at the end say drop I, and we leave it there. Are you guys able to follow this part? Why did we drop I? Because we do not need it any further. Am I audible, guys? Hmm. So what I was saying is, okay, bit of audio disconnect. So we are removing this drop I at the end because we do not need it in our final data set. So we do not want this additional variable. This is of no use to us. So at the end we say drop I. Rest, nothing changes in our data set. So let's try to run this small bit of code and see how does it look like. Are we able to see the real functionality or not? Just let me copy this. Mayur, are you able to get the essence of this? Mayur, okay, thank you. Wonderful. So if you see, guys, now we are able to process height, weight, age, and then probably there was something called as HR as well. So we haven't included HR over here. So what do you think? Should I make? Should I change over here that I'm able to remove this junk value of 999? So far in our calculation we included only three variables: height, weight, and age. Now I want to extend this logic to HR column also. Okay, thanks Ashish. So Ashish is saying, let us make this I equal to 4. Is this all that we need to do, Ashish? What change should I make? My var. Okay. So for my var, I need to include the variable HR and rerun this code. Okay. Okay, sorry, I forgot to, yeah, I just got it. I forgot to change this 4. So you can see, guys, now we were able to handle it for the HR variable also. Tomorrow, Gopal, tell me, if I want to extend this logic to include cholesterol column also, what should I do? At the moment it includes 4. I want to include it for the fifth column, which is the cholesterol column. So I'll say I am going to include 5 members. Here, do I make any change? Gopal, do I make any change over here? What is it? So I'll have to include the cholesterol column, right? My loop should also run for 5 variables, and I'm done. See, Now we were able to handle the cholesterol. So I just wanted to tell you the utility of this array functionality, and this is just the start of it. We were able to extend our logic of handling multiple variables in one single loop here. Tomorrow it could be 50 variables. You can just include those 50 variables once and forever, and then your code will work seamlessly for all 50. So it's so comfortable, it reduces so much of effort on our side, that this is the knowledge of arrays is simply, I mean, it's a must for everyone to know. Let me move on to further discussion on it. Anybody, if they have a question, please stop me. Okay, one thing that we need to know over here is that if anytime you want to purposely assign a missing value, and this is something we have discussed earlier also, if you want to assign a missing value through a function, then you can also make use of this call missing. Call missing means assign a missing value to my vars I. So if I want to assign a missing value to a particular index, so this I is also called as index. So once the value of I will be 1, it will be talking about height. If the I value is 2, it will be talking about weight. I value is 3, it will be talking about age. So my vars I is the index. So whichever index you want to assign a missing value, you can say call missing. So nothing of great importance. We are aware of this. Call missing we have seen earlier as well. Okay, now let's see something more interesting. First, I would request everyone to just read it. Just read this bit of code. Just read this bit of code and I'll explain it. There are actually many things over here going on. How do I escape this? Let me first show you this data set. What happened? Learn.chars has only 3 columns. Okay, probably it has only 3 columns: height, weight, and date. Okay, I think the data set is not right to represent it, but let me explain you the logic here, what we're trying to do. So guys, in this example, the problem is that this data set learn.chars, and I don't have a proper data set. So this data set probably has lot of character columns. So let's assume there are some 70 character columns. There are 70 columns, let's say, which are character in this data set. And the problem is that in those 70 columns, there are on a random basis multiple places where this junk value is present. Either somewhere n is present or somewhere question mark is present. And what we want to do is from those 70 columns, we want to delete these NA and question marks and rather assign them a missing value. That is what we're trying to do. So let's assume this cars data set is a very huge one. Let's say around 100 columns are there. Out of those 100, 70 are character. And all those character columns we want to process by removing the NA and question marks from there and assign them a missing value. So how does this code work? So for all our character variables, for all our character columns, we have a very smart notation now. We are saying let us create an array. The name of the array is char vars. The name of our group is char vars. You can choose any name. And the most interesting thing is we do not want to manually calculate, or we do not want to manually assign how many character columns are there. That's why we leave it in form of asterisk and leave it for system to calculate how many character columns exactly are there. So if you know beforehand exactly 70 character columns are there, you can also write 70 straight away over here. But if you do not want to take that effort and botheration on your side, you can just leave it as character, oh sorry, asterisk. So system will actually count exactly how many character columns are there and will replace this asterisk by the precise number of character columns. Thereafter, we are saying this array is this time going to contain only text kind of data, and that's why this array is text in nature. So we leave a dollar sign over here. Dollar means this whole group is going to contain only and only character data. After this, we are saying all the, so what are the values, which all columns go inside this array? Underscore character underscore. That means it's a shorthand notation. It's saying that from the original data set, pick up all the columns that are character kind of and assign them under this array. Thereafter, you know how to iterate over an array by using a do loop. We are saying do loop value starts from 1. Again, the brilliant thing here is, since we did not assign the exact size of the array beforehand, we are using a new command called as dim or dimension. Dimension means the size of the array. So if there were 70 character columns here, this whole thing dim char vars will be replaced by 70 over here. So we are not precisely telling how many character columns are there. So we avoided writing that by using asterisk, and then dim command automatically picks what is the total size of your array. So if 70 columns were there, dim char vars will have the value 70. Then we are checking if any of the places in our char vars array is having a value as either NA, or if it contains a question mark, which is, let's say, the junk data for us, call missing will assign a missing value to that particular place. Then we end our loop. Then we finally delete the loop variable from our data set, and we are able to process all the character columns in our data just by using this array. Please guys, may I request everyone to let me know if you could understand this bit or not. There are actually many things going on in here. Thanks Shilpi. Others, please, if you're not able to understand, please let me know. I'll repeat it all over again, but make sure you get it. Okay Ashish, I'll repeat the whole thing. So Ashish, here what happened is this CARS dataset hypothetically had 100 columns, which was mix of characters and numbers both. Okay, tomorrow there might be a similar data set, but it might contain, let's say, only 40 character columns. So while creating that group for character variables, we used a shortcut. We said from this cars data set, pick how many character columns are there. We just use this shorthand symbol underscore character underscore. By doing this, what happened? System was able to count all by itself how many character columns are there. So let's say in that 100, probably 30 are character columns. So the name of all those 30 will be automatically put up here while the code will run. Is this part clear? The usage of underscore character. Then we said, let us create a group to include all the character columns. The name of group is char vars. we did not want to count manually how many character columns are there, because I said tomorrow I might be running a code which has 30 character column. Tomorrow it can be another data set which would have, let's say, 50 character columns. So we do not want to manually hard code our data size, array size. That's why we said let the size of the array be dynamic, let it be asterisk. So the as many number of character columns will be there, asterisk will automatically figure out how many character columns are there. Is this part clear? The usage of asterisk over here. Dollar here is signifying that this whole array is going to contain only character kind of data. So you know in SAS, if it's a text data, you have to separately signify it by using the dollar symbol. Am I clear with the first line? Everybody, can I have a confirmation from everybody for the first line? Okay. Then once you have defined your array, what you are doing is you are iterating over it, or you are running code or calculation on top of that array. How do I work on my array? By using a do loop. The array starts from the value 1, and since we did not specifically mention how many variables we have in our array, the number of, sorry, the page got just switched, sorry, it has hung. Okay. Okay, so what I was telling is, since we did not dynamically did not predefine how many columns we are including, we have again kind of made our code dynamic by saying dim charvars. Dim charvars is going to return how many total members are there in your array. So dim means the total size of your array, or how many columns are there in your array. So in our previous step, remember we were saying do I equal to 1 2 3. So we knew exactly how many columns we are working on. Are we good here, guys? The usage of dim. Guys, are we good over here? Okay. So once we know dim, which is going to tell us, Mayur, are you able to hear me? Am I audible, guys? Okay. So dim is going to tell us how many columns are there, how many members are there in this array. In our previous step, we were precisely telling do I equal to 1 to 3. Why 3? Because we knew precisely 3 columns is that what we are working on. But this time we have let system figure out how many columns it has included in the previous step. So if there were 30 character columns, the value of dim will automatically will be resolved to 30. Okay, I believe everybody is clear with the first line of do loop. Everybody is clear with this line of do loop, the first line of do loop. Okay, then what we are checking is if anywhere in your array, so loop value will start from 1 2 and will go up to 30. So if during that iteration, if anywhere in our array the value is either NA, let's say NA is a junk data for us, we do not want to include NA in our final analysis, or if anywhere the value in the arrays is a question mark, which is probably again a junk data for us, let us delete NA and question mark by assigning that particular place a missing value, a blank value. We do not want to include NA and question marks, we want to rather replace it by missing values. And then we finally end our loop, drop the loop iterator variable, we do not want it finally, and close it. Are we all good over here? Please everybody, can you all look at it and let me know if you get the essence. And this is, guys, going to be very useful for heavy data set processing, because you cannot go manually and write name of 30-40 columns individually and write 30-40 if statements separately for each of them. So it makes a lot of sense for us to handle them using an array. So be very focused now with this discussion. This is going to help you a lot, and this is what precisely any experienced programmer does. Should I move on? Okay, thanks for the reply. I'll move on now. Now let's see a very simple example over here, guys. Very simple example, but very powerful and easy to understand. There is a data set named careless, and what this data set is some score, then the last name of the person, then answer 1 and answer 2 and answer 3. What we want to actually do in this data set is, if you see the values somewhere have been written in caps, somewhere it has been written in small, like Cody, C and O is in caps, D is in small, then Y is again in caps. Somewhere the responses have been recorded in caps, somewhere it has been recorded in small. So this is like a improper data set. The casing has not been taken care of. Now what we want to do is, we want to handle this situation by writing our code so that either everything is in caps or everything is in small, and we want to do it using arrays. This is what we are trying to do. I hope everybody is clear with the objective of the problem, and now let's see how to process it. Now, as we have been talking again and again, now you can see a very smart way from this careless data set. So the problem was where was the problem? Problem was with the character columns. So instead of telling which all character columns we want to work on, since we wanted to work, we wanted to make all our character columns uniform, we simply said, let us create a group of all our character columns by using the keyword array. The name of our group is, or array is, all underscore chars. We did not want to give the exact size, so we said asterisk, and then underscore character underscore. What is this going to do? This is going to pull out all the character columns from our data set and will assign all of those under this particular group called as all underscore chars. Is everybody okay with this line, the first line in bold? Then to process the data, we are simply saying, let us run a loop. The loop starts from 1 and ends at where? Whatever is the total size of your array, or whatever is the total number of members in your array. How do I know how many members are in your array? By using the dim command. So dim all chars will actually return exactly how many members are there in your array. Thereafter, we are simply writing this logic. If during the iteration on the variable I from 1 to the size of the total array, convert all the values to lowercase all char size. So wherever you see the data, convert it into lowercase and reassign it to the original array. As a result, if you see the output here, you can see anywhere the data that you see over here, anywhere there is no uppercase now. Why? Because we said for all the character columns, what all character columns we had? Last name, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3. All the character columns, please convert them into lowercase and reassign it to all chars. So everything is into a lowercase now. Is this clear? Gopal, did you get this? Krishnan? Guys, please, I'm sorry, I know I'm bugging you by asking you to respond clear or not, clear or not. Yes, similarly, if you want uppercase, all you need to do is just remove lowercase and say upcase. Everything will be in upcase in that case. But I understand the essence of this whole logic. If there were 30, 50 such columns and you wanted to manipulate all of them, it's so easy if I know arrays. It's so easy. But if I don't, I would have been writing separate if statements for all of those, because there is no other alternate to this other than arrays. So when you want to work on a collective group of variables on multiple columns, similar columns together, either all numbers or either all text together, then array is our answer. Okay, let's see more. Very interesting example, guys. I believe this should be very interesting to understand. Let me copy this code and explain it while running it. Just give me a moment. I don't know, there is some issue with my PDF reader. Whenever I zoom it out, it just gets hanged up for a second. Let me copy this code and explain it to you. Okay, let's understand this code, guys. This is a very interesting example where if you see the data that has been given to us was probably given to us in Fahrenheit. So let's say these are some recordings of the day temperature, and the temperature was being recorded in Fahrenheit. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to convert each of these Fahrenheit readings into Celsius scale. Okay, that's broadly the objective, and we would be trying this by using an array. And this data was actually for 2 days. Okay, no, sorry, not 2 days, 1 day. So for every hour of the day, some temperature was recorded. So I think in all these should be 24 values. Let me count them. 24 total number of values, right? I think it should be 24. Okay, here looks like 24. Okay, so for every hour of the day, the temperature was being recorded, and we had 24 recordings in Fahrenheit, and we want to get the equivalent reading in Celsius scale. Okay, let's start. First of all, we are going to read all our data. To read the whole data set, and I hope by now you would have realized that this is not our usual case of data. In this case, we want to read 24 rows, but those 24 rows are present on only 2 lines. This is not our usual case of data lines, or the usual way how SAS works. So if on a given line we have multiple values, how do we read them all? Yes, exactly, Ashish. By using this particular symbol, double at the rate, which is called as double trail. Exactly. By using double trail, we will be able to read all these 24 different values. If I do not put this double trail, my system will read from the first line, it will read 35, second line, it will read 72, and it will stop. But if I want to ensure that I read all the values, I would need double trail. So what I've done is I've used a shorthand notation. I've said create 24 values, 24 different columns, and I've used a shorthand notation. I've said start creating from Faren 1, 2, 3, 4 and go up till 24. In SAS, this is a very handy way of writing. I do not need to write all 24 column names explicitly. Rather, I can just say input Faren 1 to 24 double trail. So this will actually create 24 Faren blocks into systems PDV. Is everybody clear until line number 2? Okay. Thereafter, what we are doing is we are declaring a group or an array for all our 24 Fahrenheit readings, and we do it by saying the keyword array, and then we say name of the array is going to be Faren, and it is going to contain 24 members. Another good thing with SAS is since we had this pattern in the name Faren across, this array will automatically pick all Faren readings automatically inside this particular group. So what I mean to say is when you say array Faren 24, these 24 blocks will automatically read all your input data. So these two lines, all we are going to do is we are going to create an array to hold all our 24 readings inside this single array by the name Faren. Okay. Next step, what we are doing is we are actually creating another array by the name Celsius. Since there were 24 readings, we would have another 24 readings on Celsius scale also. So the name of the new array is Celsius. The size of the array is going to be 24, and thereafter what goes in these 24 blocks is Celsius 1 to 24. Another 24 variables will be created for us, but at the moment all these values will be missing values. There will be no value inside them because we have just created it. We haven't assigned a value to it. Thereafter, since there are 24 values, we are creating a loop to iterate over these arrays. So when the hour value, so here the loop name is hour. So when the hour value will be 1, we will be referring to the first temperature reading, which is 35. When the R value will be 37, we would be referring to the second value. When the R value will be 24, we would be referring the last value. So the logic for any block in the Celsius array is that the ith value in the Celsius array is equal to some logic, which is a standard formula for converting Fahrenheit to degree centigrade, Fahrenheit minus 32 divided by 1.8. And then after doing this calculation, we need to delete the looping index, which is hour. And if I run this code, guys, you can see now in the variable list, we have 24 Fahrenheit readings and we have corresponding 24 Celsius readings, and everything is there in one single row. So first we'll see 24 Fahrenheit readings and then we will see 24. Why does it not show? That's weird. So it says total 48 column, but I cannot see all 48. That is weird. Okay, I have all 24 here. So I have 24 Fahrenheit readings, I have 24 Celsius readings. Is this okay to everyone? This particular example, would you like to try it at your end as well? You can put it in the chat window. Just take a good look at it. Okay, which different brackets? Okay, so Ashish, I think you are first referring to this one, right? Array Fahrenheit 24. So if I go back and explain it, probably let me make a change here itself. The answer is no different. You can use any kind of braces anywhere. I prefer to use the square bracket because that is something I use in Java also. The square bracket, I use the same thing in C also. So I'm more familiar with the square bracket notation. You can stick to any one. I don't really use the curly braces one. I'm not used to it. But you can use any of the two. It's up to you. I prefer to use the square bracket notation because that's the same in Java, that's the same in C, and it's pretty much the same in R also. So I prefer to use the square brackets. I don't even use curly one. Okay, I think you all can try this and then let me know if you're able to understand this example or not. Has everybody looked at the example? Can I proceed, guys? Mayur, are you able to understand this whole thing? I believe after our discussion today, when you have the system access to the system, please try to run. Yeah, Gopal, please ask. You have a question? Sriram. So Gopal is saying if I want this data in the column format. Okay, interesting question, I would say. So Gopal has a very interesting question, guys. He says if I want to see the final output in a column format, not this way, everything is there in one single row. Yes. So what should I do? Transpose. Wonderful answer. So Gopal, very well answered by Ashish. There is something called as proc transpose, and I would request you to do a bit of Google on it and let me know if you are still able to understand it or not, or let me see, because I don't really remember the final syntax, but let me just see if I can. Yes, you have everything in column format. See, this can be used in Excel as well. Which part can be used in Excel? I didn't get you Gopal. What can be used in Excel? Yes, transpose is there in Excel also. Yeah, transpose is there in Excel also. It's there in almost all the major tools. It's there in Excel, it's there in SAS, it's there in R. Java, I don't think it's there by default. It's there in most of the analytical systems. Okay, Sriram, your question please. Yes, so Sriram has another interesting question. Do we need to have a loop for using array function? Answer is yes. Why? If you recall our example, the previous example, okay, let me go back there. If you notice here, Shriram, if I'm not running this loop, okay, this loop is only deciding that when the R value will be 1, we'll be talking about the first set of the data. When the R value will be 2, I'll be talking about the second set of data. And since in SAS, everything is processed row wise, okay, one at a time, you read only one row of the data. I need to have a loop to iterate over the rows. You agree with me or not? Like, or let me take another simple example, not to confuse you. Okay, this one, the uppercase and lowercase question. If I do not have this loop, how do I tell? Let's say you have created an array. Okay, let me give us ask you a different question. Let's say we were working on four columns. So for column 1 and column 3, you want to do you want to convert everything to lowercase, and column 2 and column 4, you want to convert everything to uppercase. How would you do that? If you do not have the loop functionality, you cannot actually jump from column 1 to column 2, column 2 to column 3, and so on and so forth. That is the whole philosophy behind creating arrays, that you define a group and then you iterate over that group and do your processing on every column. And you can also do a separate processing for every column. Like I give you an example, column 1 and column 3, I want to convert into lowercase. Column 2 and column 4, I want to convert everything into uppercase. How do I get that flexibility of processing all the columns? And that too, if I want to do a separate processing for every column, I need to have a loop functionality. Did you get my point, or are you still confused? Sriram? Am I audible, guys? Okay, probably Sriram is typing out something. Maybe did not get me. Okay, the loop functionality is required in short because using this loop only I can travel from loop 1 column 1 to column 2 to column 3 and do some processing. If I do not have the loop functionality, I cannot actually move from one column to other and do any kind of processing. So this loop actually is giving me that flexibility of jumping from one column to other. Without this loop, I cannot move from one column to other. That's the whole basis of using a do loop over here. Does that make sense? Okay. So as I was saying, if I have in my array 30 columns, how do I run a logic for 30 columns? By using a do loop. Because only then I'll be able to switch from column 1 to column 3 to column 5, or whatever I want to move across. So a do loop is necessary. Okay, let me look at another example here. So the next example, guys, is kind of a very interesting one. And what it does is the only noticeable change is, okay, let me first explain. In this data set, you see there are only two rows, 001 and 002. And what we have in any given row is income that was being earned in any year. So the first row is about income earned in the year 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002 up till 2006. So this is the income of, let's say, person 1. And then 002 is the income of the second guy right from the year 1999 to 2006. And what we want to do is we want to calculate tax for all the years. For that part, if I start here, you see input statement is ID, the person name, and then we have income variable right from 1999 to 2006. So when I'll write income 99 to 2006, how many columns I'll get? 8. 99 starts from here, 2006 ends up here. Total 8 columns you will get. And for all the income values from 99 to 2006, we have now created an array by the name income. And now comes the most interesting part. This time we are declaring our array with a dynamic name. We are saying the array will start from position number 1999 and will end at position number 2006. This does not mean that there will be 1999 members in our group. No, only the naming part is different. So let's imagine we are trying to climb up a staircase. Earlier what was happening, the first stair was having the name as 1, the second stair was having the name as 2. This time once you write 99 colon 2006, this will name my first step as 1999, second step as 2000, third step as 2003, and the last step will be named as 2006. Please tell me if this statement makes sense to everyone. This is just a play around with the names so that it is easy to remember that the first member in our array is of the income data in the year 1999, and that's all. It does not mean that it will create 1999 members. No, it is just a name of the step. Similarly, we create another array by the name taxes, and for that the naming starts again from 1999 to 2006. And what all members does it have? Taxes 1999 to taxes 2006, which at the moment will be empty or missing value in our data set because we do not have the tax information. We only have the income information. Then we are running a do loop. We are saying let us start running a loop from the year 99 to 2006, and when the loop will run, tax for any year, so tax for 99 will be what? 25% of the income in that year. Tax of 2001 will be taxes 2001 is equal to 0.25 into income of 2000, whichever year you are working on. And finally, we are formatting all the income column and the taxes column in $10 format, and we have the income value and the taxes value for every person. Let me just run this again. Somshekhar, I can see you're having a lot of disconnection today. Looks like you're pretty much troubled. Wow, think we have some issue. Too few variables defined for the income array. Why too few? What's wrong over here? Okay, looks like the new version is not supporting this. Only if that is the reason, what we can do is can check. I think we have the necessary value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 should have been running. This is working fine. Same error. Okay, I think I got the issue. Okay, so we have our answer. You know what was working, what wasn't working? When I copied from the PDF, this symbol is actually getting converted to some junk character, and that is why system cannot identify it. So let me copy the original code back again. This is causing the issue. Okay, it's working. So make sure when you copy from the PDF that dash symbol is not the junk one. You delete it and rewrite it. So we can see. Yeah, Krishnan, go ahead. I'll give this code to everyone. Please run it at your end. Do we need to use why, Krishnan? Because why? Okay, good question. Krishnan is asking a very interesting question, guys. He is asking why haven't we used double trail over here? Who would answer that? Yes, Ashish is right. Because Krishnan, in this data set, every row is one set of observations. If you see the data for income of the first guy is defined on one row. The data for the second guy has been defined on the second row. If this was a case, let's say, of something of this sort, both the people together, in that case we would need actually double trail. Even not that would be double trail because we are trying to mix up two people's data in one row. So let's say data was somewhat of this format. There were some rows in the first line and some data was on the second line. Then we will need double trail because now all the income values are not on one single line, but the given question, this is talking about two people's income and both the people's information is being given separately on two different rows. So we do not need a double trail over here. Do you get my point? Okay, just try this, guys, at your end. Let me know if this is working or not. Working. I'm also putting the feedback link before I forget because some of you will immediately run away from the session. Okay, now there is concept of temporary arrays, guys. This would be the last topic for the day. What happens with temporary arrays? If you see, I can define an array as temporary array, and what would happen is the benefit of using a temporary array is that the data for the temporary array does not get written to the final output data set. Temporary means this will be used for calculation, this will be picked up in our calculation, but this will never go to the output data set. This will be created into systems memory and then it will be deleted from there. But the output data set will never get to see this one. Like in this example, this is actually a very interesting example. There was an exam. Every student was asked 10 questions and for every question there was a response like A, B, C, D or E. So three people's responses have been captured. ID 123, ID 126, ID 129. Three people replied back. Now for the given questions, what we want to do is we want, oh sorry, I didn't realize I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. I think now you should be able to. I'm sorry. Okay, so what I was talking about is that we can actually mark an array as a temporary array. So what happens with a temporary array is, as I said, for a temporary array the output will not ever go to the output data set. So this array key 10 which we are marking as a temporary array, this array will not go to the output data set by default. What the question says is there was an exam for which three people gave the responses. Everybody responded as A, B, C, D, or E towards the 10 questions that were being asked. The correct answer to every question is recorded in this array. So you can see the correct answer to the first question is option A. Second question, the correct answer is B, and so on and so forth. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to calculate the percentage marks that every student got. Is the question clear? Guys, is the question clear? There were set of 10 questions. For every question there was only one correct answer. So Gopal, there were 10 questions. So let's say this student 1 to 3, He replied the answer to the first question is A. Second question he replied B. Third question he said C, and so on and so forth. But the correct answer to the first question is A, second is B, third is C, fourth is D. So we have actually created a temporary array which contains the correct answer to every question. So 10 questions, 10 correct answers has been recorded in form of an array called as key. Key means the correct answer. Now what we want to do is we want to calculate how many marks did every student get. For that, everybody's answer has been recorded in form of an array called as answer. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong key. Which page was it? Chapter 13. Okay. So everybody's answer was recorded in this array called as answer 10. Why 10? Why 10 is the size? Because only 10 questions were being asked. So the array should be of size 10. The array responses are text format, which is dollar. 1 means the size of every element in this array is 1. So A is 1 character, B is 1 character, and that's why we have $1. Then we have defined the key, which is the correct answer to every question. Thereafter, we are reading our input data. The first column is the student ID, and then we have 10 columns, answer 1 to answer 10. Every column answer 1 to answer 10 is text kind of and has the size as 1. At the start, the raw score, the total score of the student is 0. Then we are iterating over the loop and we are calculating the score. We are saying raw, so you understand this shorthand notation, right? Total plus revenue means total equal to total plus revenue. So this statement means raw score equal to raw score plus this whole thing. So if any point of time for any question, let's say question number 3. So question number 3, this value key question will be C. And if the student has also replied, so his answer will be answer number 3, which is C. If both the values are same, this will actually return 1. If both the values are not same, this will return 0. So when the loop will run from 1 to 10, what would happen is wherever the key value and the student's answer value will match, he will be given a value as 1. Otherwise, he will get the value as 0. So when the loop will finish, raw score will have the total number of correct answers. Finally, in the percent variable, we are dividing by 10 and converting into a percentage format. Finally, we are printing the total score and the percentage. Let me run this. So you can see for the first student, 7 answers were matching. Second one, all 10 were matching. And third one, only 4 answers were matching. How did we get that? By this is the core. This is the core logic over here. That whenever the value, question number 5, the key value at question number 5 was, let's say E, and the student's response at position number 5, which was E again, this guy will get a 1 mark, otherwise he'll get a 0 marks. And as I said, since we have already marked our key to be temporary array, you do not see the key array in the final output. And that's it. Did you guys get this part? Is this solution clear to you? How do you write an automated solution to calculate every student's score basis on a given key which has the correct set of answers? Okay, wonderful. So if you are clear with this, what I would request you guys as a assignment, you are going to explain me. I'm not even going to ask you to do it. You're going to explain me this particular piece of code number 13 dot program number 13.9. This is something you'll have to explain me in the next class. This is very interesting one. Is it doable? Can you guys look at it later? 13.9. Okay. So with this, guys, I would like to close it down for the day, and I hope you were able to understand the concept of arrays. So yeah, Gopal, we have to put temporary because I do not want this correct set of answers to be shown in the final answer set. Yeah, Sriram, go ahead. Proc tabulate. Okay. So I'll take next session on the proc tabulate. I think we have a whole chapter dedicated to it, and I asked you guys to take a look at it. Proc tabulate, if I'm not wrong, there is whole chapter dedicated to it. No? And that's what I had asked, that if you have doubts, feel free to ask about it. Proc tabulate. Yes, chapter 18. And I had asked you to read and ask me questions, but nobody ever came back. So what I would request everyone as an assignment, read through chapter 18, and then we will discuss all your doubts and queries about chapter 18 in the next class. Is that okay, Sriram, with you? Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining in, and I would close down the session for today. Feel free to keep writing back to me with your solutions, questions, doubts, whatever you have, and try to write as much as possible in your WhatsApp group also. That also helps a lot. I have seen a really good discussion going on in the WhatsApp group amongst people. Very glad to see that. Okay, so have a good weekend for today, and have a nice office tomorrow. Thank you.